lunch tray exploded across the concrete. Mashed potatoes, gravy, burnt toast scattered like shrapnel. Laughter erupted through the mess hall, cruel, sharp, designed to cut deep. But Dante Cross didn't flinch. He just looked down at the mess, then up at the man who'd caused it, and smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even an angry one. Cold, calculated, dangerous. "Pick it up, black boy," the bully growled, leaning in close enough that Dante could smell the tobacco on his breath. "Or, we'll teach you some manners the hard way." Dante stood slowly. The room shifted, the air changed, and in the next 15 seconds, a prison legend learned what fear felt like. Stay until the end, because what happened after that fight, and why a trained fighter ended up behind bars, will leave you speechless. Before we dive in, smash that like button, subscribe to Behind Bar Tales, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. Iron Gate Penitentiary doesn't announce itself with intimidating architecture. It announces itself with sound. Endless, crushing, suffocating sound. Steel doors slam like thunder every 30 seconds. Guards bark orders that echo off concrete until the words lose meaning. Inmates scream across cell blocks, their voices layered into a symphony of chaos that never, ever stops. Most new arrivals hear that noise and feel their chest tighten. Panic sets in. Reality crashes down. But when Dante Cross stepped through those gates, he didn't hear chaos. He heard rhythm, patterns, openings. Prison, he realized, operated exactly like the streets where he'd grown up. Dominance, territory, respect earned through violence or the threat of it. The only difference? Here, the walls kept you from running. But there was something else about Dante that nobody could see by looking. For 17 years, he'd trained his body into a weapon. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. He'd learned to stay calm when someone twice his size tried to break him. He'd learned that the loudest guy in the room was rarely the most dangerous. And he'd learned that real control wasn't about hurting people. It was about knowing exactly how to hurt them and choosing not to. Processing took 7 hours. Fingerprints, mugshots, medical exams, paperwork that turned your entire life into a 2-page summary. Dante moved through it all like water flowing downhill, quiet, inevitable, unfazed. When Officer Banks, a 23-year veteran with eyes that had seen everything twice, handed him his cell assignment, he offered a warning. "Block D runs rough for newcomers," Banks said, his tone almost fatherly. "Keep quiet. Learn the ecosystem before you make waves." Dante nodded. "Appreciate it." Banks studied him. "You've got that look, fighter?" "Used to be," Dante replied simply. "Used to be doesn't mean much in here," Banks said. "Only matters if you're willing to use it when it counts." The walk to Block D cut straight through the yard during recreation hours. Groups of men clustered around rusted weight benches and cracked basketball courts. Conversations died as Dante passed. Eyes measured him, categorized him. The racial divide was immediate and obvious. Black inmates occupied the far corner near the fence. White supremacists claimed the picnic tables. Latinos controlled the weight pit. Everyone watching everyone. Everyone calculating. Near the entrance to Block D, a cluster of white inmates sat like a pack of wolves around their alpha. His name was Kane Riker, though Dante didn't know that yet. Prison tattoos crawled up Kane's neck, symbols of hate, violence, power. He wasn't the biggest guy in the yard, but he didn't need to be. The way the others deferred to him told the whole story. Kane's eyes locked onto Dante as he walked past. For just a second, the entire yard went silent. Then Dante kept walking, and the moment dissolved, but both men knew it was only a matter of time. Block D, second tier, cell 207. A concrete box barely large enough for 2 bunks, a toilet, and a sink that dripped rust-colored water. Dante's cellmate was already there, an older black man with graying temples and eyes that had seen too much. His name was Ellis, and he'd been locked up for 14 years. Ellis glanced up from a tattered paperback. "Fresh fish," he said with dry humor. "What's your bid?" 3 to 5, Dante replied, setting his bedding on the lower bunk. "Aggravated assault." Ellis nodded. "In prison, your crime was your resume. Self-defense? Something like that." "Always is." Ellis dog-eared his page. "Name's Ellis. Listen close. If you need to know something about this place, you ask me first. Could save your life." That first night, Dante lay on the thin mattress and listened. Somewhere down the tier, a man sobbed into his pillow. Another muttered prayers in Spanish. The fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. But Dante didn't feel despair. His mind was already working, cataloging, planning. This wasn't his first time being outnumbered. Lunch in Iron Gate was a battlefield disguised as a meal. 300 men crammed into a space designed for 200. Metal trays, watery slop, coffee that looked like motor oil. Dante grabbed his tray, something that might have been eggs, toast burned black, juice that tasted like chemicals, and scanned the room. Ellis had warned him that morning. "Kane's been asking about you," Ellis had whispered during count. "Wants to know if you're connected. Wants to know if you're soft." Dante had nodded. He'd expected this. Predators always tested new blood. It was instinct. He found a table near the back wall, positioning himself where he could see the room. Eating alone marked you as either dangerous or weak, and until people decided which, you were a target. Dante ate slowly, methodically, aware of every whisper, every glance. Then he felt it. The air pressure changed. Conversations dropped. Heads turned. Heavy boots approached from behind. Kane Riker and 3 of his crew moving through the mess hall like they owned it. Guards at the front of the room suddenly found their paperwork very interesting. Dante kept eating. Well, Kane's voice boomed across the silence. "Look at this. New guy eating all by himself." The mess hall had become a theater. Hundreds of eyes locked on one table. Dante took another bite, chewed, swallowed, then set down his fork and looked up. Kane stood directly behind him, arms crossed, tattoos flexing. His 3 enforcers spread out, cutting off escape routes. "You deaf?" Kane leaned in. "I'm talking to you." "I hear you," Dante said quietly. No fear, no anger, just acknowledgement. Kane's eyes narrowed. He'd expected submission or defiance. This calm indifference threw him off. "See, here's how this works," Kane continued, louder now, playing to the crowd. "You've been here 2 days. You haven't paid respects. That's a problem." Dante nodded slowly. Didn't realize there was a toll. "Oh, there's a toll," Kane grinned. His followers chuckled on cue. "First, you stand up when I'm addressing you." Dante met his gaze for a long beat. Then he stood, slowly, deliberately. But as he rose, something shifted in his posture. His weight settled. His hands hung loose, his breathing deepened. To most, it looked like compliance. To anyone who understood fighting, it was a loaded gun. "Better," Kane said, placing both palms flat on the table, leaning his weight forward. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that cornbread. Tomorrow you save me your dessert. Next week you put money on my books. Call it insurance." Dante glanced at the cornbread, then back up. "And if I don't?" The question hung in the air like a lit fuse. Kane's face darkened. "Then my boys and I teach you a lesson. Might take a few tries before it sticks." Dante nodded as if genuinely considering it. The room held its breath. "I appreciate the offer," Dante said calmly, "but I'll pass." Silence. Then Kane's face twisted with rage. "You think you're tough?" he hissed. "You think you can disrespect me in my house?" Dante shrugged. "I think I'm gonna finish my lunch." He started to sit, and that's when Kane's boot came up fast, kicking the tray off the table. Metal clattered, food sprayed across the floor. The crash echoed like a gunshot. Dante looked down at the mess, then back up at Kane, and smiled. Just once. "Oops," Kane sneered. "Better clean that up, boy." Dante stood, and everything changed. What happened next took less than 15 seconds. Dante stepped inside Kane's reach in one fluid motion, grabbing his wrist and collar simultaneously. A judo throw, clean, fast, brutal. Kane's body launched over Dante's shoulder and slammed into the concrete with a sickening thud. The mess hall gasped. But Dante wasn't done. As Kane scrambled to his feet, dazed and furious, Dante dropped low. His arm snaked around Kane's neck, a rear-naked choke, locked in tight. Kane clawed at Dante's forearm. His face went red, then purple. 10 seconds until blackout. Kane's 3 enforcers stood frozen, unsure whether to jump in or run. The entire prison held its breath. Then Dante released. Kane collapsed, gasping, coughing, his eyes wide with confusion and terror. "Stay down," Dante said quietly. No emotion, no triumph, just fact. Kane tried to speak but only managed a wheeze. Years of reputation gone in 15 seconds. Dante stood, brushing off his uniform. He scanned the room, made eye contact with faces that would remember this moment forever. Officer Banks finally arrived, taking in the scene with practiced eyes. "What happened here?" "Slipped," Dante said simply. "Clumsy." Kane, still on the ground, nodded weakly. "Yeah, lost my balance." Banks looked between them. He knew better. But in prison, some fights resolve themselves. Riker, you need medical? Kane shook his head, still staring at Dante like he was seeing a ghost. As Dante walked toward the exit, Ellis fell into step beside him. Son, Ellis whispered, you just rewrote the rulebook. Dante nodded. Had to happen. Kane won't let this go, he can't. I know. Back in the cell, Ellis finally asked the question. Where'd you learn to fight like that? Dante sat on his bunk, the adrenaline finally fading. Started when I was 12, he said quietly. My mom saved up for classes at a gym in our neighborhood, said she was tired of me coming home with bruises. He stared at his hands. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, 17 years on the mats, competed nationally, fought professionally for a while. Ellis leaned forward. So what happened? Why'd you stop? Dante was silent for a long time, then barely above a whisper. Because I killed someone. The words settled like lead. Ellis waited. My sister Maya, Dante continued. She's a nurse. This guy at her hospital wouldn't leave her alone, followed her home one night, his hands clenched into fists. I went to talk to him. Just talk, but he swung first, so I defended myself. Dante looked up, his eyes hollow. But when you're trained the way I am, the law doesn't see it as self-defense. They see it as excessive force. The prosecutor called my hands lethal weapons, said I should have known better. He pulled a worn letter from under his mattress. Maybe he was right. Ellis was quiet. Then, how long did the fight last? 30 seconds, maybe less. He swung. I took him down, put him in a choke. Dante's voice cracked. But I was angry, really angry, and I held it too long. Does your sister know you're here because of her? Dante nodded. She writes every week, says it's her fault, but it's not. It was my choice, my mistake. Ellis leaned back. You saved her, Dante. Maybe it cost you, but you saved her. Dante stared at the ceiling. Sometimes I wonder if there was another way. Maybe, Ellis said. But you can't live in maybe, only in what is. The next day Dante was summoned to the warden's office. Warden Vincent Shaw was a man in his 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. His office walls were covered in commendations, photos with politicians, and framed newspaper clippings. Sit, Shaw said. Dante sat. Shaw leaned back, studying him. Interesting first week you're having. Yes, sir. Kane Riker's been here 4 years. Runs a tight operation. Rarely causes problems. Shaw paused. Until yesterday. Dante stayed silent. 3 witnesses say he slipped and fell. Clumsy accident. Shaw's tone suggested amusement. But my cameras tell a different story. Dante's stomach dropped. He'd forgotten about the cameras. Shaw opened a file. Your background is fascinating, Mr. Cross. Clean record, supported your family, model citizen, right up until you killed a man with your bare hands. He looked up. But here's what interests me. 17 years of martial arts. Tournament wins. Professional record, 8 wins, 2 losses. Shaw closed the file. That prosecutor was right. Your hands are weapons. Question is, why didn't you use them sooner? Dante met his gaze. Because violence should be the last option, not the first. Is that what your instructor taught you? Among other things. What else? Dante thought of Master Takashi, the man who taught him everything. Control, Dante said. He taught me that strength without control is just destruction, that the goal isn't to hurt someone, it's to end the conflict with the least damage possible. Shaw nodded slowly. And yesterday? Kane was twice my size with 3 allies. A brawl would have involved dozens of inmates. People would have been hospitalized. Dante paused. I ended it quickly. Minimal damage, clear message. You could have broken his neck. Yes, sir. But you didn't. No, sir. Shaw leaned forward. I have a proposition for you, Mr. Cross. Dante walked back to his cell that afternoon, knowing everything had changed. The warden had given him an option. Train corrections officers in defensive tactics, or spend the rest of his sentence watching his back. The skills that had put him behind bars had just become his way out. That night, he wrote to Maya for the first time since arriving. I finally understand what Master Takashi meant, he wrote. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to destroy someone when you have the power to. He paused, pen hovering over paper. I'm going to make this mean something, I promise. Outside his cell, the prison hummed with its endless noise. But for the first time since he'd arrived, Dante Cross felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose.